Good morning. It's 7:40. We have a quorum. May I call the meeting to order? Carl, will you do Pledge of Allegiance, please? It's my understanding that William is taking his family to college.
Yes. For the whole week.
It's a heartful job. Okay, let's go through. Do we have any public comments or anybody here for public comments?
Yep.
No. Then may I call for roll call for attendance? Janelle McLaughlin. Oh, sorry.
Carl Benager.
Here.
Michael Gonzalez.
Here.
Janelle McLaughlin.
Here again.
Mike Macris.
Here.
Dan Orajel.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We have the approval of the minutes from the meeting of July 10th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Seconded.
So approved. And let's see, what else do we have here? August 14th agenda was posted. Yes, we all have that. May I have the vote on the minutes for all of us to approve? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we have a presentation by Danelle for graffiti update on proposed modification to the municipal code.
Good morning. I was asked to come and talk to you about our graffiti program and some proposed changes that we're looking at doing here for the program. I just wanted to start by kind of telling you about where we are with graffiti removal. Obviously, you all know we have a graffiti problem in the city. We are tasked with here in maintenance for the removal of the graffiti. We remove anywhere from 4 to 4.5 million square feet of graffiti annually. We receive approximately 40,000 requests for service annually. Originally, back in 2007, when I first came over to Public Works, we had a graffiti hotline, and we still have the graffiti hotline, and that's where all of our requests for services were coming in. We now, as you all know, have the app, the My Santa Ana app, and actually it's kind of switched to where now we're getting anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 requests for service through the app. And we still get calls through the graffiti hotline, but it has switched where really now people are using the technology to report to us. Which is, great from a standpoint of our job, which is, those reports goes directly to the staff that's out there working in the field. They get pictures, they know where it's at. They can at any time pull up their phone and say, oh, I've got 10 right here in this area, and if somebody has requested something, it's going to show up on their phone. So it's really worked very well for us from a standpoint of, having work orders and things like that, and then also for the contractor to be able to get there as quickly as possible to remove the graffiti. We tend to, we say within 48 hours for a request for services, but a lot of times it's within 8 hours. It's the same day. Probably the majority of our stuff we're getting done within 24 hours. Just real quickly, we have 5 staff that work the graffiti program during the week. They're out there 5 zones. We divide the city up into 5 zones. Each staff person is responsible for the zone. And then on the weekend, we have 1 staff person that works Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And the weekend, they mainly are focusing on the major arterials and getting the graffiti down on the weekend. And then on Monday, we start again, doing the work order requests, the neighborhoods, the arterials. We're doing everything during the week. What I'm bringing forward today is we wanted to talk to you about what we're going to propose to our ordinance for the graffiti program, and that is administrative fines. So currently, when somebody is arrested for graffiti, under our ordinance, we can collect restitution, which is basically the cost of removal of the graffiti, and that is being done. But what we want to add to that, to the ordinance, is to actually be able to fine the people that are being arrested. So the restitution comes after they go through the whole court system, and it's, on let's say a piece of graffiti that's 10 square feet, the restitution is $350, and then we get that back, and that goes back into our removal program. Any given year, it's $10,000 to $20,000 that we're receiving for restitution based on the arrest, and of course, through the court system, they can set up payment plans and things like that. So it's not like it all comes in at once. But generally speaking, it's anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 annually. What we're proposing to add to the ordinance is this fine amount. So what we want to do is the first fine, $1,000, and that's $1,000 we're receiving up front, not on the back end when this person goes through the whole court system. Second offense, $2,000. Third offense, $3,000. So what would that do for us revenue-wise? Last year, the police arrested in 2017 83 individuals. So that's $83,000 if we had the admin fine on the books. This year, the first 6 months, we have 27 arrests that have been made. What our goal is with that funding, if approved, is to then use that for outreach for the schools and the neighborhoods about the program, and not to do graffiti, and the kind of educational component of graffiti. We kind of see graffiti with the 3 E's: eradication, which is our part; education, which what this money would be used for; and enforcement. We do have a $500 reward program that the city manager's office, in conjunction with PD, runs. Anywhere from, sometimes we've had 5 in 1 year, sometimes we've had 2. We haven't had any this year yet, but we do have that that we can charge. Actually, people receive $500 if they give information and it leads to an arrest. So our plan is we wanted to bring it to you, share the information with you on this proposed amendment that we'd like to do to the ordinance for graffiti. We're going to take it to the Public Safety Committee next in September and hope to have it in front of council for approval in October. So that's where we are, and I'm open for any comments or questions regarding the graffiti program or the ordinance change.
Let's go down. Dan, do you have any position on this or comment?
No comment. I think it'd be good to get restitution, especially for the education part.
Yeah.
It's easy, Mike.
I congratulate you guys for having this program. I really think that is pretty needed, and I believe probably that to have some help from community or business owners, that will help a lot. I know a lot of people here in the city that will be willing to help, and I can be one of them. Let me just start thinking about it, and I will get back to you. Thank you.
Mike.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Now, it says you fine them, what's the first fine when they get $1,000 when they get caught?
$1,000 would be an admin fine, correct?
And then most of these young people don't have $1,000 sitting around. And so does mom and dad have to pay it?
Yeah, somebody needs to pay it. Yes, I'm not sure how they'll, maybe. Go ahead, Bud.
Okay.
If the offender is a juvenile, yes, the parents will be responsible for the fine. But if the offender is over 18, then he or she will be the one responsible, and they could, if they don't have the money, they could provide, volunteer hours, but they have to go through the court system, of course.
Good. And I think the fine should be $10,000. We were on the corner of 5th and Broadway for 83 years, so I can tell you there's a lot of graffiti, especially when they start etching your windows. It's $1,000 per window it cost us. So, okay. We can't do public hangings, okay? Just kidding. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm very much supportive of this. Is there any other cities that follow this program, this fine level?
I don't have the information here. I'm not sure, but I know there's other cities that are doing it, but I can't tell you off the top of my head which ones they are.
If I can,
Yes,
if
please.
I may, I can speak to that. When I first came here, I had the pleasure of meeting many city officials, and graffiti was mentioned as one of the main concerns in this community. I worked before in the cities of Oakland and San Francisco, and I worked on instituting a strong ordinance in San Francisco for graffiti, and the fines there, I don't know the exact amount, but they're very hefty fines. And that's one of the first things I wanted to implement here, in response to community concerns. As I said, I worked in both of those cities. Both cities, deal with graffiti. Having a strong program, strong ordinance, will make some people think twice before doing it, knowing that they will, pay the price for it. And of course, I'm in favor, just like committee member Macris, making it even more, 5,000 or 10,000. But of course, there should be certain reason behind that, and we can always revisit this in the future and change the fines accordingly. So hopefully, this will be what we intend. Doing through this is to send a strong message to those who tag the different buildings and impact the community in a bad way. So first the most important thing is the strong message that the city will be sending, and then that we really care about the quality of life here. And as I mentioned earlier, this will be a tool to teach young kids that responsibility. If you destroy public property or private property, then you'll be responsible for it, and then you'll pay, whether you pay in fine or community service. So I think it's a good program, and we're very glad that we see that you're supporting it.
Well, you definitely have my support.
So what I hear here is that this 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, the collection of those funds will go for outreach. Without those funds, because we have no funds now, how are we outreaching to get to the strong message that we have? What are we doing to outreach to the community?
Sure. Yes. We really don't have
Outreach without money.
Yeah, we really don't have the outreach other than our website and our Santa Ana Graffiti Task Force, the police department, but they're not. There really isn't a lot of outreach. That's why we're hoping to have these funds to help us, like Fuad's saying, to get that message out.
So may I suggest is that you have Deidre Powell at the Santa Ana Unified School District. She is your communication person. She does a weekly blog. She does a weekly posting. She does that the teachers get, that all the personnel get, and things like that. So you have tools that cost no money to go in there, and you've got a wonderful school police in there. And they have meetings all the time with the students, and it fits, because what we've been remiss on is for the last few years of putting these strong programs in, or strong messages, and then it just does nothing. It just sits here in the city, and we have not had the staff or the time are available to reach out. And you've got so many great tools that just are at the end of one telephone call and one press release. You have Nexel. Is it going out on Nexel?
Yeah. Yes, we'll definitely we'll be putting stuff out on Nixle for
And
this.
when does that go out?
Well, we have to wait until we get it approved.
In October.
Yeah.
So you're in October after
Right.
City Council
Right.
approves it.
Can you repeat? I'm sorry, the name that you mentioned.
Deidre Powell. She's been there.
Powell. Okay.
Yeah, she's
Thank
been
you.
there quite a few years, and
Thank
she's
you.
the communications. And then you have Susie Lopez, that is outreach. She's Chamber of Commerce. You have the David Elliott, that's Chamber of Commerce. So a little presentation at the Chamber of Commerce is free. A press release to these people are free. And I think that's what we've been so remiss on, is nobody knows who to contact or how to contact them. And I'll be more than happy to share any names within the communities. You have also Scott Kuttner that does his email blast to all the neighborhood associations. So when you say you have the strong message and there's no outreach plan, it's right there in front of you. It's an excellent, easy way. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, thank you for your comments and your suggestions. These are great comments, and we'll definitely act on each one of them. I totally agree with you. I mean, we have to have a strong message, and that was the idea behind these hefty fines. Initially, I heard concerns that these are too high, especially for those who families who cannot afford it. But again, the strong message is what we want to send out here. And we're going to utilize all these tools. I want to mention that we're hiring a community liaison person who will help us with these things. The main focus of this person in Public Works will be outreach, working with different neighborhoods and community organizations, maybe encouraging more, volunteering events and activities. So that's in the works. So, thank you.
That's great.
So if you're hiring a community outreach, do you have any interview process from the community that will go into that? Because many times when the school board, hires folks, is that they have a panel, and the panel's made up of certain parts of the community that interview, or in the interview process. They really do. And so you're asking for community liaison with everybody being very new. I want to make sure this person, lives and knows and has been active within Santa Ana, because the respect of a Newport Beach person that comes in the city has done that before, and it's more of a backfire. And then with a community liaison person, is what their connections are. They, are they across the board equally treating everybody the same, and their history of work in the community?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And the hiring process for this position will go through HR department. It follows all the rules that the city has in terms of hiring employees for the city. And also in the job description, we did mention that one of the requirements is knowledge and familiarity with City of Santa Ana, different community groups, and so forth. So we'll make sure that this is taken into consideration. Thank you.
So then the final thing is that in October, when you do reach out to the Chamber of Commerce, may I since I'm the representative, understand the letter, the presentation at the board meeting? I know William went and presented, and they were very receptive. And thank you. Looks like you're on the hit parade again, Danelle.
It's me again. It's Danelle Mercado again. Okay, so the next item is the 17th Street median trees update. I'll just recap real quickly where we were at last meeting. Engineering presented the bids for the 17th Street medians as far as watering the trees. The bids were high per tree based on, because they were set up for the infrastructure as well. So the bids did come in when you broke it down by tree high, and I know that there was a discussion. I was not here. Fuad agreed that we would meet and out in the field and look at ways to value engineering the project. So we have done that. Staff went out, met the week after, I believe, the last meeting. We had our engineering staff with the project as they had it drawn up, our self-maintenance, and Fuad. We looked at the site, and we all agreed moving forward. We actually agreed, we pulled the item to take the original bids to council, so it didn't go to council, and that maintenance would then look at, basically with our current contractor, we wanted to look at ways to just do, instead of doing the infrastructure, just doing what you talked about last time, which is the drip around each tree and then capping the sprinklers in between. So I have met several times with our contractor since then. We're looking for ways to use the contingency we have. So we have the $90,000 budget amount, and then we have the contingency within our maintenance contract, of which has really changed from a scope perspective. I know I've talked to some of you about this from a standpoint of we really aren't mowing now with mechanical mowing equipment. We're really what we're calling chemical mowing, basically keeping the weeds down because we don't have grass. We do have grass in some of our neighborhood medians, kind of on Flower, Oakmont. We have some on the south end as well. But 95% of our contract now that we're not mowing with the equipment. We're really chemical mowing, keeping the weeds down. And then, of course, we're still in there every week having to, now that we're not mowing, the contractor's having to pick up the leaves and debris from the trees manually as opposed to what used to be picked up by a mower. But either way, we're looking at their labor and the difference now of the scope and how we can somehow find the savings from that to use to do 17th Street. I was hoping to have some information for you this morning as far as costs, but the contractor had a family emergency last week, and he's promised to have the information together for us by the end of the week. We're hoping that we can, like I said, get that within the contingency and be able to use that $90,000 and do all of 17th Street. We ran all the numbers. I know this came up last meeting, but there's basically 200 trees between the east and the west side of 17th city limits. We have 120 sycamores, and we have 80 tepu trees. And the sycamores, actually, what's the good thing right now is because we've turned the water back on, they actually they're enjoying having a consistent flow of water, 3 days a week in the evening. They really are. They're not back to their original state, but they're coming back. They're enjoying having that water, so that's a good thing right now. But overall, I'm hoping we'll have better numbers this week when I get those from the contractor. We'll be sitting back down with Fuad to review them, and we'll move forward from there based on, hopefully we'll get it within that range. And so I'm open for any comments and questions.
Mike? Dan? Whoa.
You stunned us.
So at the end of the week, when you find the amount of money, do you send that out in an email to everyone, or do we just move this to the agenda so we can have an email to know how many trees are going to be able to be done?
Yeah, for a matter of time, and so we can move forward, I would be, if everybody else is in agreement, I think we can share that information via email to the entire committee.
So
Would that work?
I believe that
As long
would
as
be
we're not,
okay.
okay.
And I'll follow up on that.
I do like to explain to you is that we're out in the community a lot. I walked into an event, and I bet you I had 5 people ask about 117th Street because it was spoken about when Roll went out to his folks. So exactly the same thing. People are following your Nexel. Let's tell them what we're doing, how we're doing, and the better that we outreach, the better that our reputation as a city comes. Hi, sweetie. So it's followed up by the prettiest, huh?
I just felt like a catcher just got the ball.
Welcome, Tag.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Keg Higgins, and we wanted to talk to you about the kind of a design trigger when we should bring projects to ETAC, and the title of the item is kind of where we want to end up, and I'll explain that a little bit. From time to time, staff will bring major transportation projects to ETAC for input, and for consideration of some of the things that you might want to see out there. We might be talking about, generally we'll explain the project. It's a widening project or a beautification or a traffic calming type project. Anyway, and then we look to ETAC to provide some comments on it. Over the years, we haven't had necessarily a real standardized process as to when we bring that to you. And Fawad thought that would be important to at least, standardize and determine a kind of a design milestone. And, for us in the engineering world, normally we work with 30, 60, 90%, and 100% plans. Those are pretty typical milestones. And so we talked back and forth at staff, as a staff, to determine when we thought it would be most beneficial to bring it to you all. We discussed all of those, 30, 60, 90. We thought at 30% the plans may not be developed enough for you to get a real clear picture as to what we're going to do. At 90%, kind of the other end, there's, certainly the plans would be developed at that point, but there would be much less flexibility in kind of changing or incorporating the comments that you would have. So anyway, that's how we ended up with 60%. Again, it's kind of a good mix of plans are developed and we might have some ability to pivot slightly. So anyway, and then in the agenda, it lists some particular projects that as examples that we would be bringing forward. Some of them are beyond the 60% milestone, but again, it's because we're asking for your concurrence on the 60%, and we would bring those projects in the very near future as it's shown. So anyway, that's the end of mine, and Jason is here as well. Jason is in charge of, his group is in charge of actually all of these projects. So I don't know if you had anything to add, Jason, in particular.
Nothing specific to add, just if you have any questions or comments about the projects that are presented or a discussion of the item in general.
Yeah, first of all, I very much support this because then it gives us a chance to talk about it. We have one example in my neighborhood, MacArthur, between Bristol and Rate. And the sad part is that between Bear Street and Rate, there's enough room. You could put a fourth lane, but more importantly, we could put a right turn lane going into the school and going into that new subdivision. And it's just marking on the streets. They have X's, what would be the fourth lane or could be turned into a right turn lane into the school as well as into that new development that's being developed there at Rate and MacArthur. So this will give us a chance to comment on it. But I would like to leave you with the comment tag and Jason, take a look at that and see if we could, because they blocked out essentially what is a fourth lane there that could be turned into a right turn lane into the school subdivision.
Okay, we can certainly look into that.
Okay, then my question becomes, at the 60% design level, is that when we have a planning of a new development, and we've talked about this before, is that who describes the trees or who selects that, and at what point does that ever come back? Or with the 60%, which is a great procedure, is there any way that these new developments that put trees down a street or trees in part of the development, that we can add that same 60% design back at ETAC? Because I've just seen plans of all these trees going in that don't match, as we've all spoken, the rest of the street, that have not, specifically have drip systems associated with it because we've got a transition in planning. But the 60% is a beautiful number to have something come along and then still have a degree of input.
Madam Chair and committee members, I think if you're talking specifically about development projects, the process goes through the planning commission, planning department and planning commission, and I think a more appropriate venue for making comments on anything related to private developments, I think, is the planning commission, because they don't come through us here. When they submit it to Public Works, it is if it impacts anything in the public right of way, it will be, I think, in the final stages. We do work with planning and building department, initially on reviewing, their plans and whatever improvements they do to the public right of way, but I don't think there is a way to bring it here. It's gonna, be
The only thing that
very
I'm asking for
complicated,
is
and
the trees.
Yeah.
Because we talked at our pre-meetings and that, to give the planning a new book, a new book, or who makes the decisions of what trees that is, that's going to go into the street. So, right now there's nobody in planning making that. Right now we used to have Waldo, I believe, that was our arborist that looked over those plans. And right now there's a void because our two arborists are the tree cutters and they don't come in and look over the plans. As Dan had mentioned, is that we've got that big void, and there's some way that we need to find a system to work. I mean, we can say it's all planning, but if they don't have a designated tree updated book for trees by drought, by species, if they don't have a consistent of matching what the street is, so that it's a clear view, it's something that's falling through, and we've noticed.
If I could speak, Janelle.
Yes.
This is Dan. I think we're mostly talking about right-of-way trees, not in the public, not in their own private property. And in the past, we've looked at and made decisions on trees that were removed and what the replacements would be. And sometimes we weren't able to replace trees at that site in the right-of-way for driveway utilities or whatever else. And then we were able to get trees and put them in other locations just to make the developer replace the trees, maybe 2-to-1 or whatever the agreement was. So I think that's what Janelle's talking about because
ETAC has handled that
right,
before,
in the
and
past
it's just
we've
gone
seen
into
that.
this abyss now.
Yeah, so that normally in the agencies I've worked for, it's been somebody in urban forestry that's looked at the plans prior and decided, what the replacement trees were according to our master plan and things like that. I think that's where Janelle's headed. Thank you.
I mean, forgive me for not knowing the exact system. I'm relatively new here, but I'm going to defer to Teg to address this because I'm sure he has been involved in the past in reviewing such projects.
Thank you. Yeah, traditionally we've done something very similar to what you said. It's the on our development conditions that we write. We say. We tell the developer install a number of trees, and we leave that open. But the direction is to go through. It used to be Craig Fernandez, and then Waldo, and then more Frank now. And so anyway, that does come from Public Works Maintenance Group. That direction of what type of tree to put in there, and it is supposed to come from that guideline, the book, the master plan of trees. If you know of certain areas where developments occurred and the tree was not similar to what's on the master plan, then that's certainly a mistake. It's supposed to happen that way. I can continue to work with Public Works Maintenance to make sure we iron out any kind of inconsistencies there, to make sure that we put in the tree per the master plan.
So going back is that my understanding, since we have not had the Waldos and the Greg Fernandez and all that, and an arborist, that again there is that void that when you say it's Public Works that's supposed to do it, let's define who in Public Works. The second thing is that we all discussed about updating what the planning department gets as a suggested species of a designated tree species, because that has not been updated, since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So updating that, because we have the huge disease problem with the boar beetle, and we have a drought problem of certain young trees not taking to this. And then the third is requiring a watering system for these trees that are on our curbs, and we've been remiss on that as well.
Now, on the final one, that is part of our standard plan, is the deep root watering.
So that has gotten on there?
Yes.
Because we've kept requesting it, and I
That's
didn't
in
know.
Yeah, that's in our standard plan.
Perfect.
Yeah. And just to recap, just to make clear, the first one is the personnel. Obviously, that's important. We'll make sure it's we're referring the developer to the right person, and then we can follow up with that, Frank, to make sure that.
And who's Frank? I'm sorry.
Frank.
The tree supervisor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We in our development counter can follow up with Frank to make sure that we are verifying that what is shown on the plans is the same thing that he had asked for. Okay. And then number two is more of a citywide master plan, right? At least my understanding of what you were saying. So again, we can work with Public Works Maintenance on finalizing that. And then the final was, you mentioned three. Maybe we'll go to the tape.
The designated
I'm sorry,
tree species.
The deep root. The deep root.
Yeah, which everybody
and
said
we have covered.
already in
Okay.
there. So is Frank an arborist?
Frank, we have two arborists on.
Yes, I know our tree cutters, our two arborist tree cutters, that assured me that they've never looked or commented on any plans, because I had lunch with them.
Yes, that is correct. If I can update a little bit, we did have a transition from when Waldo left until Frank was here. I actually was the one that they were referring it over, so I was putting it against. I'm not an arborist, but I do know our plans and I do know our master plan, and therefore the developers call us and me in the interim. I probably a couple that I can recall were then we go to look at the master plan depending on where the street is they're building, and I let them know what the tree species that they're supposed to be planting. Currently, Frank Torres is the tree supervisor. He is in the process of getting his arborist. He's actually been with the city 25 years. He worked in the crew years ago, was a sanitation inspector, and promoted to tree supervisor last year. So that's a part of the condition of his employment. He will be an arborist as well. So that's how we've been handling it in the interim, but Frank will be the one that they will go to for now that he's on board as the tree supervisor. That's how the standard's written. And again, the standard for the deep watering's in there in the plan as well. So
Thank
that's
you
how
very
we're
much.
handling it.
Thanks, Tag. Thanks, Danelle. We're now to G, goals and objectives. And I guess that's you, Fuad?
This item was added to the agenda just to, give the committee an opportunity. If you want to follow up on any of the goals that you listed last time that you provided us here, it's nothing specific, just open discussion for you if you want to emphasize on certain goals or objectives that you want us to focus on.
Would you be so kind to describe the meeting that took place and who was at the meeting for the goals?
No, I'm referring to the last committee meeting here when you presented a document that listed the goals and objectives. Do you have that document, Lori?
So what I'm speaking of is that the executive director of Public Works called a meeting and asked for Dan and myself to attend and to sit in a meeting to review the goals and objectives from that agenda item. And so we did have a meeting, the three of us did have a meeting, and then we went over the goals and objectives and took a priority of them. So is there any notes from that meeting on priorities or what was agreed upon at that meeting?
Madam Chair, if you're referring to the meeting we had at Public Works offices,
Yes.
That meeting was mostly geared toward discussing the 17th Street, the plan to change the irrigation system for 17th Street, and how to spend the funds that excuse me, that are available for us. And it was decided at that meeting that we would utilize whatever funds we have available to maximize the number of trees that will be the irrigated, and any funds available that will be spent on neighborhood parks and trees, I believe.
So at that meeting that we talked about, the 90,000
Yes.
that was, and I want to share with my board members here, is the 90,000 that we spoke of that was going to evaporate at the end of July 31st really did not evaporate. You figured out a way to carry that over, and you announced that and discussed that at our meeting in the Public Works. Then we talked about the extra 50,000 that was in the budget that was discretionary. So we had an extra 50,000 in the budget that was discretionary. So that was the numbers that we talked about for the trees in that particular meeting.
I agree, yes.
And we also shared a list of priorities for the trees and in that meeting.
Yes. We
May I move that to the next agenda as well, and I'll bring my notes because I thought it was going to be a presentation. So I'll bring my notes so that I can review with the rest of the committee what was discussed there.
And I want to apologize. That was not meant, to be handled at this. What we meant by this item here specifically is the list of goals and objectives that you
Correct.
brought forward to the last ETAC committee, which included, it's dated May 3rd, 2016, from back, May 3rd, 2016. We just wanted to basically provide an opportunity here if you wanted to go over this list of the 10 goals or 10 items listed on your list, and if there is anything that you wanted us to, comment on or discuss or improve or change. That's what was meant by that. We can also bring this at the next meeting if that will give the committee an opportunity.
I recommend we bring it to the
Yes.
next meeting because I do have like 4 pages of notes and
Okay.
of what we sent here as a priority or what the city could do and what they couldn't do.
Okay.
And I'd like to bring that to my fellow board members from that meeting.
Okay, then we'll include that on
Do
next.
we have any minutes from that meeting?
I don't.
The meeting that you
The
had,
3 of us, correct.
you and Dan and Fuad. I did not take any I was not present at that meeting.
Yeah.
If anybody else did, then let me know.
If you, yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
So what we also learned at the meeting is because of the Brown Act, would you explain that to my vice chair here? Because of the Brown Act, we couldn't have 3 people from the board at that meeting.
Definitely, the meeting was called for, to discuss the situation with canceling the contract and pulling the item from the council agenda. So there was, very short notice for that meeting. The main purpose, again, was to discuss how we're going to spend the money, if the money is going to be available through next fiscal year, what contracts are available for staff at this time to move forward with the, with revising the irrigation system along 17th Street, the same item that Danelle spoke about earlier in this meeting. So, and because of the short notice and because of any time, it's my understanding that any time if 3 members of a committee meet, they have to post notice 10 days in advance, and that was not available, so that's why we invited only 2 members of the committee to attend. And I hope that explains,
it does. And then the request to explain, if we have a sub-tree committee and we are still working on it, and it was a committee that was established a few years ago, it went dark, and now we brought it back out, is that the 3 of us had met as a sub-tree committee. And so the question is, are we allowed to still continue as an ongoing ad hoc? And it's my understanding that 3 members can continue as long as there's no staff available or attending that meeting. So I just wanted to have a clarification.
I would like to defer this to the city attorney and get back with an answer to you on this. From what I know, based on my experience with San Francisco, again, also being a commissioner on the state Seismic Safety Commission, anytime 3 members or more meet, they have to follow the certain rules, and they have to post notice, regardless whether a staff is available or not. So, but if I may allow
by
us
all
to,
means, because
yes.
the clarification that we have met before, that we did meet, and my understanding is during that whole bylaw process, you had 3 members meeting, and nothing was posted. And it's called an ad hoc.
That's correct, Janelle. And what I want to say, this is Lori Ortiz, the recording secretary. We did discuss that particular question with the city attorney, and John Funk, the assistant city attorney, highly discouraged that sort of thing of meeting three committee members at once. If it is an ad hoc committee, I spoke with both the city clerk and the city attorney and clarified that there has to be an end to the ad hoc committee. They have to have a clear definition and a clear end to being a subcommittee or ad hoc committee. Unfortunately, there was no end to the last one, and I believe that you might have started it up again, but there has to be a reason for there being a subcommittee. Otherwise, it needs to be noticed to the public.
So we did not have it last year, but when we went through the priorities, we met to go through the priorities before coming to the city with the priorities regarding the trees. So then how do we go about posting it, and what is the procedure that if we would still like to have that ad hoc while we're going through 17th Street and some other changes, let's say going through the list of the 10 objectives and how we're approaching that list of 10 objectives was what the ad hoc met on. So what do we need to do to keep having that conversation?
If there is a clear end date, then you can continue doing so. But if it goes on continually with no goal that's defined, then it needs to be noticed to the public. So if you're now talking about goals and objectives, then as soon as you're done with that, it needs to be ended, if that's the goal. So your previous committee, the tree subcommittee, I don't know when it ended, but if it's going to continue, then it does need to be noticed to the public.
Does notice to the public, or do we simply have to say this is the end date, this is the end target?
There has to be a 72-hour notice to the public if it's a continuing committee.
Gotcha.
And if I may, I think it's probably better to invite the city attorney to attend next ETAC committee meeting and speak specifically to this, rather than some of us trying to guess what is the exact and specific rules. So
That's where we're so excited you're here. Okay, what else do we have, darling? Okay, so Dan, do you have any comments?
Just to staff, thank you for following up on 17th Street. We're real grateful for that, and we're looking forward, excited to see some progress on that. A question: when is that project going to end there? I know we have continuing, and then obviously Fairview Bridge. Boy, that's going to be an impact, which is very much needed. But all those seems like all the arterials going north and south. There's always an interruption with Bristol and things like that. But the 17th Street westbound has been, I think it said winter, spring will be done, and we're in summer now. And with school starting up again and all that, it really is difficult to go west on 17th from, I guess it's Ross to 17th from Ross to Bristol westbound. So I know we're it just seems like it's just an ongoing, like a chronic thing.
Sure. There's two projects near that intersection. There's the one I believe you're referring to, which is a water main replacement. I don't know the end date of that, but I can get that to you. So I'll check on that. The Bristol improvements that are happening right there, that's going to conclude, looks like this fall. So we're getting closer to that one.
Yeah, I've seen they paved southbound, and it's just going to take some coordination to get all that done.
Dan,
Yeah,
would you
once we-
turn on your microphone?
Excuse me, yeah, I just noticed southbound. They paved southbound, so we're getting there. They'll
It
probably
should
put a
move pretty
median
quickly
in
towards a
section.
conclusion on that one. So,
Yeah. It's just
but I will-
the 17th, because we have there's been temporary in there for a long time. Starting with the potholing, and then it took about a year and a half to finally get the next section going. So it's always been a bump in the road there for a long time.
Sure, I'll get a completion date on that one too.
My wife asks, that's why. Again, because she drives down that street.
Understood.
I'm telling
Happy
you,
wife,
Dan, this
happy
is-
life.
You've come back and you've done the wife trick twice.
Yeah, I gotta run with that. I worked with a building inspector one time, so I got to run with that. So, anyways, but absolutely. Anyways, we'll leave that one there. But anyways, we appreciate your help and thank all of you staff for. One other item I can talk to you. Somebody planted a lot of trees in the front of their yard, and I need to talk to you about that on Flower. So I can talk after. Thank you again.
Thank all of you guys for being here. And I would like to get as much as information I can get about the graffiti program, so I can try to help with some friends that I got interested. Thank you.
Can you please repeat your question? What was it that you were requesting?
More info about the graffiti program. And
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, I think you asked me if that information could be translated into Spanish at one time for you to disseminate to your ward.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Me?
Yes.
Thank you. Danelle, I want to thank you again for your vast knowledge of everything that goes on in this city. If we're going to have a little presentation about the Brown Act, Lisa Stork does a wonderful job. She did that for us when when I was president of Downtown Business Association, and I haven't seen her in a long time. Other than that, now here's one question. Let's say a guy is coming in to make a project. Does the city tell him what trees are allowed to be planted at certain places, or if he comes in and says, I want to plant this, because it'll look good. Is that okay, or is it just you say, no?
Are you talking specifically about street trees or private property trees?
Either one.
The street trees, they're as we talked earlier, there's a guideline, master plan, tree species by particular street that we would have them plant. And again, that's something that Public Works Maintenance prepares with ETAC approval. For private property, there are probably more guidelines if it's on site. There's probably a specific list of trees that they would allow them to do. It's not just one type of tree as it is on the streets. So it's much more flexibility on private property with a private development. If you'd like, I can see if our planning department has any specific information on that, either through code or guidelines, kind of standard guidelines for tree planting on site, and through Lori, I can, if there's links or anything like that, I can forward that to the committee.
And also, are they required at that point in time when they're installing them to put in the proper irrigation?
Again, on site, I'm sure they are. They probably give irrigation plans. That's not something that Public Works checks, but all the irrigation then would go, landscaping and irrigation would go through our planning and building department for review.
It'd be a good idea to do it right the first time, because it costs twice as much to fix it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Turn this on. Mike, I totally agree with you. I think those are very good questions. I'd like to see our procedures also, because that's always is a question, how are trees selected and in what location? I also like to I like to thank staff, and I'd like to thank you for stopping the 17th Street activity. That took your effort, and we very much appreciate that. I would like to recommend in one of our future meetings that we do include the Parks and Rec in one of our meetings to talk about trees. We get a lot of criticism about what are you doing with the trees in the parks, and we say that's not our area. And so it would be nice to have a joint meeting. Maybe you can do at ETAC to talk with the parks and what they are doing right now. My understanding, they have a donation of 100 trees that are going to be planted in Century Park. I don't know if you've heard that or not. Centennial Park. Got it. But I think it's good that we talk together. That's all.
Is your recommendation for the Parks Commission or the Parks Department?
I think the Parks Department, who's ever in charge of their trees. Yeah.
Okay, folks. North Park Boulevard, there's 2 segments there in the medians that the water still is not on. And that is from about Benton to Flower, 2 complete medians. And this is like my 3rd time bringing that up. No water working. The list that Floral Park gave of the dead trees, there was an aggressive list of trees to be cut. I saw 1 tree out of that being cut. Is that moving forward?
Thank you. This is Danelle Mercado. Yes, I did receive that list. Thank you very much. Several weeks ago, our tree section is reviewing the list and actually has, they're almost done, my understanding, they are done inspecting them all. A lot of I know there was several on there that might have been dead if I don't remember all the numbers, but some of them have already been removed because I know that your list was maybe from
Correct.
But we didn't get it until recently. So some of the work's already been done just through our natural process with the tree section. But yeah, we're going to have it all completed, and then I was going to report back to the beautification chair on the list and the different, whatever the update is for each tree.
The next thing in terms of what you asked about the parks, if you got the Nexel that just came out yesterday, that the 1.5 penny tax was inclusive of the parks and rec getting more money. So perhaps we want to wait until and see if that's passed.
Yes.
And since it was called out in the candidates booklet or the ballot booklet that Parks and Rec was due those funds, maybe we wait on that?
I think we definitely do, because we've got to see if it passes first.
Correct.
Locking money before it's approved is...
Correct. Okay, so that we move that over. Then there was a question that has continued, is that how do we report back to City Council on findings by staff and our meetings and different things like that? Because how do we report to 17th Street of how that demonstration project is working? How do we report how many trees that we were able to do? So what is the system of reporting back? The last we had heard, and there's a lot of new changes, is that we had the 7 minutes to speak at the city council and update them by commission. And so that process, when folks left, that process stopped. Will we still be doing that as a process? Years past, they used to have the minutes of our meeting, which was too cumbersome, the city council folks have said. So I still would like to put that on. How are we doing that? And that applies to other commissions as well, but specifically here, because we've engaged a lot of our city council members on the project of trees and assisting the trees. Then we talked about the funding of once we replicate this demonstration project, how do we fund it to replicate it for all of our medians? That was a funding question that has been rolling on our list of ETAC items. And then I'd like to say that I did attend the Long Beach maintenance, and that was specifically for wildlife and how wildlife is handled in trees. And there was a lot of talk that certain areas in the city of Santa Ana are called bird sanctuaries. And when asked William, he did not know where to go to ask why these areas are signed as bird sanctuaries. So with great pleasure, I went out there and I met, what was so nice is that we had so many representatives from Santa Ana there. So we had our tree cutters there. We had our 2 arborists there. Frank was there. It was like I was adopted, and everybody had barbecued lunch together, and we learned a lot about it. But that was nice because all the information I learned, our tree trimmers learned. And I brought this back, a book, Tree Care for Birds and Other Wildlife. May I give that to my members here? And on top of it is that the tree trimmers, and at this event, this is I believe a union event that they put on to educate the tree trimmers and the staff. Oh, thank you. See, I got just enough. And so it was really nice. They did a video and how if anyone comes into cutting that they have to stop and they have to, connect with this agency. And it was just a very good learning experience. On top of that is that how a bird sanctuary is determined is how many of the premium birds are in habitat of that area. And then they have a list here that we can go over if anybody's interested of what percentage birds, what they are, and how they are considered a sanctuary. And that area of from the river to Discovery is a sanctuary. the creek area is a sanctuary. So I also have protecting harm. Of course, I made copies, you know, who else? And that was their handout. I'm over. Thank you again for joining us, Fuad. Thank you for the meeting ahead of time. And I did see, Danelle, some work being sent out. Can you update us? Because you did some outreach. I don't know if I saw it in a water bill or something. It thrilled me. That's all I have to say.
I'm assuming you're talking about the watering trees in the heat?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. We developed the one-page kind of marketing item on watering trees in the summertime and tips for the homeowners for their private property and for the public trees, street trees. It's on our website, which is being revamped. The website in general, because it is hard to find. It's under Santa Ana Green. So it's there. It will be coming on a Nixle. My understanding is it's this week as a calendar. They don't want to put everything out at once. So it's on the calendar to go out this week. We'll put it in the next Santa Ana Green. And they're going to do it in the social media, the Facebook, the Instagram, and whatnot for the city. So it's getting out to the public that way.
When we have such good wins like that, share it with us because it's really nice. It's 8:45, and Mike.
One quick question.
Yes.
Would that be possible?
Of course.
I'll turn this on now. Now, I don't know if this is true, and I don't know if this is the place to ask, but since this is all city folk over here, they would all know the answer. Are we being inundated with coyotes in this city? Because every time my wife, and she lives on that computer, Santa Ana Now, Santa Ana this, Santa Ana that, all the neighborhoods are reporting coyotes in their neighborhood. Now, I don't know if these people know the difference between a German Shepherd and a coyote, but does anybody know anything about it?
I will be more than happy to talk to you after the meeting because it doesn't come under our purview as ETAC. And the fact is that we are very knowledgeable on it, so we'll share that with you.
Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.